Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. When I bought the old Lakeside Lodge, I wanted silence, not war. But when a power-hungry HOA president stormed my gate with a fake smile and forged papers, she triggered something she didn't expect. A battle-hardened man with nothing to lose and receipts to burn. I didn't buy the old Lakeside Lodge because I wanted to find myself. I bought it because I wanted silence, privacy, and absolutely zero people with laminated badges telling me what color my roof should be. After too many years in coastal rescue and then running a startup that grew faster than I could sleep, all I wanted was a place where the only schedules that mattered were sunrise and when I feel like it. The property sat on the north side of Sevier Lake. 8 acres of untouched land, and one long-forgotten recreational lodge, built sometime in the 1970s. The previous owner kept everything grandfathered in under a private trust. No neighbors, no governing body, no HOA in a 10-mile radius. Just me, a diesel generator I rebuilt myself, a water well drilled deep into the alkaline soil, and a dock sturdy enough to moor 3 houseboats. My new life had 2 rules. If a person had a clipboard, I wasn't letting them pass the gate. And if someone said community standards, I was calling the sheriff. 3 weeks after I moved in, I was in the workshop rewiring an inverter system when the motion sensor pinged. My cameras showed an unfamiliar SUV creeping down my gravel driveway. 2 people stepped out, wearing navy polo shirts with the words Pine View Shores stitched over the chest. A third woman climbed out of the driver's seat. Blonde helmet haircut, mirrored sunglasses, tablet under her arm. She moved like she expected doors to open when she appeared. I had never seen a person radiate HOA energy that strongly before. They didn't knock. They walked straight through the open gate, past the private land signs, and made a beeline toward the lodge. The woman in the sunglasses raised her camera, recording as if she were documenting a crime scene. I stepped outside and greeted them the same way I used to greet armed fishermen who claimed they had accidentally drifted into restricted waters. State your business. The woman smiled with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. Good morning. I'm Karen Rathman, president of Pine View Shores Homeowners Association. These are our community officers. We're here to begin the onboarding and inspection of your structure and grounds. Please provide any remodeling permits and commercial activity licenses you have on file. I blinked slowly. Onboarding. She nodded, tapping her tablet. Your lodge has been unofficially used as part of the community lakefront for years. The board voted to adopt it as part of the common recreational zone. I took a breath and walked to the gate control panel without speaking. Silence is more unnerving than yelling. One of her officers, Greg, judging by his embroidered name, stepped in front of me. You can't close the gate, he said. We're not finished. You were never invited, I answered. Karen laughed. This isn't optional. Your property is adjacent to a subdivision. When homeowners have water access, that access falls under our jurisdiction. We're simply ensuring you're compliant with community standards. I pressed the button. The gate began to close, steel sliding along the track. Her SUV was still between the posts, half on my property, half on the public road. When she realized what I was doing, her eyes widened. You can't do that. My car is... The gate clanged shut with a deep metallic finality, locking her vehicle inside. I just did. She marched toward me, heels stabbing at the gravel. Open the gate. Now. You're obstructing a community-authorized inspection. No, I said. You're trespassing, and there is no community authority over this land. It's private trust property, separate parcel, separate utilities, separate water rights. You don't even have jurisdiction over the dust on the road outside. She lifted her tablet like a sheriff drawing a gun. We have bylaws. Our authority is recognized by county zoning. I leaned closer, keeping my voice low and calm. I served 15 years in the Coast Guard. I've dealt with pirates with better paperwork. Greg puffed up beside her. We're allowed to photograph violations. You stepped past a locked gate, I said. Everything after that is on my surveillance, including your faces and your license plates. The second officer, a lanky guy who looked like he got lost on the way to a Best Buy interview, shifted nervously. Maybe we should call this in, Karen. Karen planted herself in the center of the driveway, shouting so loudly that the audio peaked on my cameras. You cannot restrict access to a shared water resource. We will revoke your land rights if necessary. I didn't say anything. I just raised my hand, pointed at the cameras, and smiled. Then I walked into the lodge and left them outside, pacing and ranting until they realized I wasn't coming back. They stayed 40 minutes. When they finally left, they had to call someone from the subdivision to come open the gate. I watched the whole thing from the upstairs window, drinking coffee and wondering, not for the first time, why people voluntarily elect tyrants in golf cart dictatorships. The moment her SUV disappeared down the road, my phone buzzed. A notification from the external microphone. Her parting words captured perfectly. "This lodge will be ours. He just doesn't understand who he's dealing with." Oh, Karen, you have no idea who you are dealing with. The next morning, I woke up to a war zone in my inbox. Apparently, while I was sleeping off a long evening of replacing the lodge's water heater and node rods, Karen and her HOA minions were very busy online. The community Facebook group, Pineview Shores Neighbors United, which I had zero reason to follow until now, was on fire. Someone had uploaded a shaky video from a cell phone across the street, showing Karen yelling into my driveway while my gate sealed shut in front of her car. The caption read, "HOA president illegally detained while trying to protect our Lakeside access." It had about 80 comments in 5 hours. Half the replies were Karen's loyalists echoing her hysteria. The other half were confused residents asking what the hell she was doing near that old private lodge anyway. A few pointed out that the property was never part of the HOA, and at least 2 people demanded to know how HOA dues were being used to fund these operations. I made my coffee stronger than usual that morning. Midway through my first cup, the security system pinged. Someone had tripped the perimeter mic again, outside the front gate this time. No entry attempt, but loud enough to trigger. I reviewed the footage, Karen's voice again, on her phone. "He's bluffing. He doesn't know the law. Ron says the parcel lines are gray enough to push it through if we keep the pressure up." I didn't know who Ron was yet, but my internal radar pinged like a depth finder over a reef. That name would come back. Instead of reacting emotionally, I took the measured route. Years in uniform taught me that when someone threatens your ground, you fortify, document, and wait. I called the Sevier County Sheriff's Department and filed an official complaint for criminal trespass and attempted unauthorized inspection. Then I sent my lawyer a full copy of the footage, video, audio, timestamps, and a transcription of everything Karen had screamed about my land rights. He called me back an hour later, laughing, "You have the cleanest title I've ever seen. Trust-owned, 0 HOA affiliation, no shared zoning, and, oh, this is beautiful, a standing grandfathered water access license. She's toast." Still, I wasn't just playing defense. I wanted the truth out in the open. So, I requested to appear at the next HOA board meeting. My lawyer thought it was a terrible idea. "You're not a member. Why even bother?" "Because," I said, "if Karen wants a performance, I'll give her one. But this time, with facts." I formally petitioned the HOA under their own transparency clause. Public board sessions had to allow guest statements. Took me 15 minutes to find it on their dusty website. That evening, as I finished compiling the surveillance footage for a presentation, I received a strange email. Subject line, "You don't know me, but you should read this." No name, just a Gmail address. The body contained a Google Drive link and 2 sentences. "I don't agree with what she's doing. She doesn't speak for all of us." I clicked the link after scanning it for malware. Inside, PDFs, internal HOA emails, scanned meeting notes, group chat screenshots. And they were damning. Karen had forced a closed-door vote to initiate informal annexation proceedings on my land, citing community interest in consistent waterfront standards. 2 board members abstained. One protested in writing, stating the parcel was not legally within their scope. Karen overrode it, stating she had external assurances. And in one of the chat threads, someone named Alex Duvall had said, "This isn't legal, Karen. We're going to get sued." She replied, "Not if we keep him off balance long enough. Once it's annexed, he'll have to fall in line or sell." My teeth clenched. That was the plan all along. She was counting on pushing, harassing, and publicly shaming me into either giving up or making a legal mistake. And now, I had proof. Before I could even decide what to do next, my phone buzzed again. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. Then curiosity got the better of me. It was a male voice, young, nervous, hesitant. Mr. Rawson, I'm Alex. I'm on the HOA board. Look, I sent those files. I don't know what she told you, but this wasn't okay. I only voted yes the first time because she said it was symbolic. She lied. We're not all behind this. If you want to talk, I'll meet you, privately. No one has to know. I played the message again just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. A mole, a whistleblower, a guy on the inside. This was going to get a hell of a lot more interesting. The HOA board meeting took place in the most predictably sterile venue imaginable, a beige-walled, multi-purpose room in the back of the Pine View Shores Community Center. Fluorescent lighting buzzed overhead like anxious insects, and the air smelled faintly of disinfectant and bad decisions. I arrived 10 minutes early, dressed in my usual canvas work shirt and boots, not bothering to clean up. Let them see me for exactly who I was. A man who builds things with his hands, not one who attends compliance workshops. My USB drive loaded with video, audio, and a neat little presentation rested in my breast pocket. And in my back pocket, a printed stack of property documents, water rights, zoning maps, and a notarized statement from the county clerk confirming I was not, and had never been, a member of their asinine little kingdom. By the time the meeting began, at least 50 people had filled the chairs. More stood near the back. Word had spread about the lake guy, and Karen was clearly not expecting this level of attention. Her smile was tight, her usual smug composure stretched like old paint. She opened with a speech about preserving shared values and equitable use of communal assets. It was like watching someone try to speak a TED Talk into existence. Then came the moment I had requested, guest commentary. I stood. Clint Rawson. I'm here because this HOA, or rather its president, has attempted to annex private land that does not, in any legal sense, fall under its jurisdiction. Karen cut in before I could continue. Mr. Rawson, we've already explained that your parcel's proximity to the community shoreline. I held up a copy of the deed. This land is designated as independent private trust land. That means it cannot be annexed. It does not participate in HOA votes, dues, or decisions. Here's a certified map from the county land office showing that your boundary stops 94 feet short of my fence. I handed copies to 2 board members. One of them, a silver-haired man who hadn't said a word all evening, flipped through the pages slowly, his eyebrows rising. Next, I brought out the big guns, the video. I had cued it precisely to the moment Karen screamed into my gate camera about revoking land rights and consequences. I plugged the USB into the community center's projector, clicked play, and let the footage do the talking. Karen's voice blared through the speakers. Her face, contorted with rage, filled the projection screen behind her like a villain's hologram. The room was dead silent. Then came the laughter. Not malicious, not cruel. Just the stunned, disbelieving kind of laughter people release when absurdity finally breaks through fear. Someone near the back let out a whistle. One of the officers sitting next to Karen shifted his chair away from her, just slightly. I ended the video, then spoke again. This isn't about aesthetics. This isn't about shared values. It's about power. Someone here thought they could bend legal boundaries with enough bluster. Well, I've brought receipts. Then I laid down the kicker. A printed email between Karen and a man named Ronald Chambers, head of RC Holdings, a private development firm. It wasn't anything explosive yet, just a courteous thread where she updated him on progress securing lake access for Phase 2. But it was enough to raise eyebrows. From the corner of my eye, I saw Alex Duvall. He wasn't speaking yet, but he was watching. Closely. His arms were folded tight across his chest, like he was trying to hold himself together. Karen stood up, visibly rattled. This is an ambush, she stammered. This lodge was built illegally in the 70s. It's an environmental hazard, a safety risk. We have every right to initiate compliance measures under community bylaws. A woman in the 3rd row raised her hand. Wait, are you saying we're responsible for someone else's private land now? Karen ignored her. Another board member finally spoke. First time I'd heard his voice all night. Karen, he said slowly. Did the board vote on any of this annexation business? Because I don't remember a formal motion. I thought we were just looking into shoreline cleanup. Karen's voice went up an octave. I briefed everyone. I circulated memos. We never approved this level of action, he said calmly but firmly. And we definitely didn't authorize entering someone's property uninvited. Alex stood up then. His voice was quiet, but it cut through the murmurs. She told us it was symbolic, he said. Just pressure, no legal steps. I voted yes because I thought it was a community letter, not a plan to seize land. Karen turned on him like a striking snake. You coward. You knew exactly what we were doing. I didn't sign up to be part of a land grab, he snapped back. You lied to all of us. Gasps, actual gasps from the crowd. It was like someone had ripped the fabric of their suburbia straight down the middle. Karen's composure fully cracked. Her voice trembled. Fine. You all want to pretend this isn't about preserving value? Go ahead. But when that Lakeside turns into a run-down boat shack, don't come crying to me. She stormed out. No one followed her. The rest of the meeting ended without a vote, without direction, just stunned silence and half-whispers. The kind of atmosphere that only happens when people realize the person they gave power to never deserved it. Alex caught up to me in the parking lot afterward. That email from Chambers, he said, lighting a cigarette with shaking hands. That's just the surface. I've seen worse. They want to buy the land. Flip it. Commercial marina. Maybe even condos. He looked me in the eye. She's not done. And neither is he. I nodded. Neither was I. I was halfway through reassembling the filtration system behind the lodge when I heard the pop of tires on gravel again. This time, I didn't check the cameras. I just stood up, wiped the grease from my fingers, and waited by the fence. But it wasn't Karen. It was a plain white pickup truck. No markings, no HOA logos. Just a guy in dark jeans and a Carhartt jacket. He stepped out, looked around like he wasn't sure if he was trespassing or picking up lumber. Then he walked to the gate, yanked on it twice like a lazy repo man, and walked back to his truck. My cameras caught his plates. California tags. 2 hours later, while reviewing the footage, I noticed something strange. He wasn't checking the gate. He had a tool in his hand, wire cutters. He was trying to trace my power lines, specifically the buried cable that connects the solar array to the pump system behind the workshop. That night, just after midnight, my generator tripped. Backup kicked in, no problem. But when I checked the main line the next morning, someone had tried to cut into the conduit box. Sloppy job, maybe just enough to trigger a failure. I reviewed the footage from my infrared cams and finally saw the bastard. Same guy, hood up, flashlight between his teeth. He was digging near the utility trench with what looked like a multi-tool. And not for the first time. He'd been scouting the area for at least 3 nights, slipping in after dark, probing the perimeter. I called the sheriff. When the deputy arrived, I handed him the footage, timestamps, and still images. To his credit, he didn't ask stupid questions. Just whistled and said, "Not exactly HOA protocol, is it?" I laughed. Unless they've started outsourcing sabotage to third parties. I filed a second report, this time for attempted vandalism and malicious interference with infrastructure. And then I called Alex. His voice was tight. I saw him at one of the HOA meetings weeks ago. He wasn't introduced, but Karen talked to him like they knew each other. Quiet guy. Stayed in the back. You think he's with Chambers? I don't know. But if he is, they're escalating. That's when I remembered the voice recording from the week before, Karen mentioning Ron. Ron says the parcel lines are gray enough to push it through. Ron, as in Ronald Chambers, CEO of RC Holdings. The name that kept showing up in her emails, always in the background. I needed more. So I dug. Public records showed that RC Holdings had submitted 2 preliminary development proposals to the county over the past 3 years, both labeled as Lakeside Mixed-Use Development Zones. Both included vague language about recreation space. Acquisition. One of the diagrams even had my parcel drawn with a faded dotted line around it, labeled Phase 2 Potential Acquisition. That's developer speak for we'll get it one way or another. The files also revealed that RC Holdings had previously partnered with the Pineview Shores HOA on a Greenbelt maintenance grant that, according to the paper trail, never actually led to any maintenance, just a transfer of funds. It all fit together now. Karen's aggression wasn't just HOA posturing, it was the first wave of a coordinated soft grab. Push through compliance noise, generate public pressure, slip in a few safety concerns, and then either force a sale or make life unbearable until I gave up. They weren't just coming for my gate. They were coming for the land. I secured every camera, reinforced the fence line with motion-activated floodlights, and set up a hidden trail cam pointed directly at the trench line. That same night, the guy came back, but this time I was waiting. I stayed inside, lights off, coffee in hand, watched him on the thermal cam. He crouched down near the same conduit box, started to pry open the access panel. I triggered the alarm manually, set off the floodlights, the siren, and activated the speaker system with one simple phrase. "You're being recorded. Deputies are en route." The guy bolted so fast he dropped his multi-tool in the dirt. I kept it. Still have it, actually. The sheriff's office took the report seriously this time. The vandal was ID'd within a day. Temporary subcontractor out of California. Recently paid under a shell entity that had one address, a P.O. box leased by RC Holdings. No signature, no contract, just a paper trail soaked in shadows. Meanwhile, Karen went silent. No Facebook rants, no driveway showdowns, which only made me more nervous. Then, one morning, I received a certified envelope. Utah Department of Water Quality and Environmental Compliance. Subject: unscheduled site inspection notification. Complaint: suspected chemical discharge into protected lake zone. I laughed out loud. These people were insane. But I still showed up to the inspection, fully prepared. I met the state inspectors at the gate. They expected a fight, but instead I handed them a clipboard with test results from an independent environmental engineer I'd hired the same day the complaint hit. Soil samples, water reports, chain of custody signatures. My property, clean. They looked confused, maybe even a little embarrassed. Before they left, one of them muttered, "This is the third fake complaint we've followed up on from this area in the past 2 months." I raised an eyebrow. All tied to the HOA? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Back in the lodge, I checked my cameras again. Nothing on the perimeter, nothing on the road. Still, I had a feeling the storm wasn't over. It was just circling back. By now, I'd come to expect that if I had a peaceful morning, it just meant someone was planning something behind my back. The fallout from the botched inspection didn't go public right away. Karen and the HOA were quiet. Too quiet. Like a poker player who just went all in and is trying not to breathe while you decide whether to call. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, a brown envelope arrived by courier. No return address. Inside was a document that made my blood run cold. It was a letter of intent to purchase, stamped and signed, naming RC Holdings LLC as the buyer and listing my parcel, my trust, and the lodge as the subject property. The price offered was laughable, barely half of what the land was worth, even on a bad day. Attached was a draft agreement stating that the property had been conditionally annexed into the Pineview Shores HOA as part of recreational development realignment. And below that, an unsigned page marked Addendum A, pending compliance issues, will be resolved by HOA board in cooperation with county-level zoning support. Seller is advised to cooperate to avoid escalation. It was like reading a ransom note wrapped in legalese. I scanned the page, then read it again. Slower. There it was, clear as day. They were preparing to claim I had already agreed to annexation and sale. A fictional narrative, likely with backdated paperwork, that would allow RC Holdings to make a formal offer under the illusion of legality. In their world, I wasn't resisting. I was just being uncooperative. They were manufacturing consent. I called my attorney immediately. He asked if I was sitting down. "You're not going to believe this," he said. RC Holdings filed a soft inquiry with the county clerk last week. They're claiming HOA jurisdiction exists on your land. It's not official. They're fishing. But they're laying the foundation for a civil suit, or worse, an injunction to freeze your title until it's resolved. He paused. "You need to go on offense. Now." I agreed. We filed a formal cease and desist letter to RC Holdings and the HOA board, citing attempted coercion, land title fraud, and unauthorized representation. We also filed an emergency declaration with the county property office asserting our intent to defend the trust from fraudulent annexation with all evidence attached, including the emails, the environmental report, the surveillance footage, and the subcontractor's identity. Then I picked up the phone and called Alex. He sounded tired, worn down. "I told you it would get ugly," he said. "Ugly's fine," I replied. "I just don't like fraud." "I've been compiling stuff," he said. "Meeting minutes Karen never filed, vote counts that were faked, HOA funds redirected for consulting. I can prove she was acting alone and that the board never officially voted on any of this. Can you testify?" Long pause. "Yes, but not in public. Not yet." I didn't press him. He'd already risked a lot. That night, I went through every file he'd sent me. One folder caught my attention, labeled Phase 2 Briefing. Inside, a PowerPoint presentation. Logo of RC Holdings in the corner. Title: Pine View Lakeside Redevelopment Vision. Slide 2 showed a map, not a zoning map, a marketing map. Photoshopped images of luxury condos, waterfront restaurants, docks with rental kiosks. And in the middle of it all, highlighted in soft green, my land, my lodge, my dock. Underneath, proposed Marina Clubhouse, Phase 2, anchor property. I stared at it, hands clenched. They'd been planning this for over a year, probably longer. I was never an obstacle. I was a checkbox on a project timeline. Karen was just the middleman. Chambers was the real threat. He hadn't just partnered with the HOA, he'd practically bought it. Financial reports showed consulting reimbursements to board members. HOA funds transferred into accounts tied to shell firms owned by RC Holdings. Karen, for all her faux patriotism and self-righteous shrieking, was on the payroll. They'd used the HOA like a Trojan horse. I decided I wasn't going to fight this quietly anymore. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called a reporter. Her name was Natalie Finch. She ran a mid-sized local investigative site that punched way above its weight. I sent her the entire folder. She read it in silence. When she spoke again, her voice was crisp, focused. I need a week, maybe less. If even half of this holds up, it's going to explode. I'm counting on it, I said. That night, as I closed the blinds and checked the camera feeds for the 10th time, I saw headlights slow roll past my driveway. Not stopping, just watching. They didn't need to come in. They already thought they owned me. What they didn't understand was that I'd spent a lifetime pushing back against tides, and this one was going to break. I wasn't sure what I expected from the courtroom, but it wasn't this many people. By the time the bailiff called the case, the gallery was packed. Journalists, local homeowners, off-duty sheriffs, even a few curious hikers from the nearby trailhead who had no idea they were about to witness a legal wildfire. Natalie Finch's article had dropped 3 days earlier with the headline, HOA or hostile takeover inside the Sevier Lake land grab scandal. It hit like a lightning strike. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman with a military bearing and zero patience for theatrics, called us forward. This wasn't a full-blown trial yet, but rather a pre-motion hearing on my injunction and counterclaim against RC Holdings and the Pine View Shores HOA. The stakes: whether the attempted annexation would be declared fraudulent and whether the HOA had acted outside its authority. Karen sat 2 rows ahead, flanked by 2 very nervous-looking attorneys. She looked like someone had pulled her spine out and replaced it with wet newspaper. Ronald Chambers wasn't present. His firm sent corporate counsel instead. The room buzzed like a live wire. My lawyer opened with a calm, deliberate timeline. The unsolicited annexation attempt, the trespassing incident, the fake environmental complaint, the fraudulent purchase offer, and finally, the uncovered financial ties between RC Holdings and the HOA board. Each piece supported with evidence, sworn affidavits, and hard timestamps. Then came the exhibits. First, the video of Karen yelling at my gate. The same one I'd shown at the board meeting, but this time with full audio clarity, including her infamous line, "We'll revoke his land rights if we have to." Gasps. A few murmurs. The judge raised one eyebrow. Next, emails from Karen to Chambers, detailing timelines and progress reports. Then, Alex Duvall's notarized statement, confirming that Karen bypassed standard voting procedures and misrepresented board consensus. And, finally, the money. Bank transfers, vendor payments. A shell company named Lakefront Civic Solutions, which, surprise, had one director, Ronald Chambers. That company had received consulting fees from the HOA budget for over a year, more than $60,000 routed through community funds. The room was dead silent. Karen's lawyer tried to object, claiming this was all circumstantial. The judge silenced him with a look that could boil water. "You'll get your rebuttal. But if this is true, and I say if generously, then we're not dealing with an overreach. We're dealing with organized, systemic misconduct." That's when Karen snapped. She stood up, hands trembling, and pointed straight at me. "He never belonged here. That lodge, nobody used it for decades. It was always meant to be shared. He just showed up and locked it down like he owned the lake." The judge leaned back slowly. "Ms. Rathman, are you under the impression that long-term vacancy voids land ownership?" Karen's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. I was trying to help the community. By forging documents, By filing false complaints with environmental authorities? By paying yourself through a development firm's cutout account? Karen sat down. Her lawyers looked like they were deciding who to throw under the bus first. Then came the final blow. The sheriff's office submitted a report, my vandalism case. They confirmed the subcontractor caught on my cameras was hired via the same shell company tied to Chambers. That footage, when played in court, showed the man tampering with my electrical systems under cover of night. It's clear, the judge said, folding her hands, that this was not the work of an overzealous HOA. This was a coordinated attempt to exert unlawful pressure on a property owner with the intent to coerce sale or surrender of land access. She paused. And that's not a civil matter. That's criminal. Suddenly, everyone was moving. Karen's attorneys whispering furiously, RC Holdings counsel scribbling notes, reporters texting updates mid-sentence. The judge granted my injunction, declared the attempted annexation null and void, and referred the case for criminal investigation. Charges included fraud, harassment, abuse of administrative powers, and attempted sabotage of private infrastructure. And then, like a cherry on top, she addressed the HOA board directly. Effective immediately, the HOA will be placed under audit and temporary suspension of activity until a full forensic review is complete. Any further attempt to contact Mr. Rawson, his trust, or his representatives will be considered harassment. Karen's jaw hung open. As we left the courtroom, Alex found me by the steps. "They're done," he said quietly. "The board's resigning. The HOA's collapsing." "You good?" I asked him. He gave a tired smile. "I testified against my own board. I think that makes me the opposite of good." "You did the right thing." He shrugged. "Still sucks." A few reporters tried to chase me for a quote. I ignored them, walked to my truck, hands steady, sun bright over the hills. I didn't smile. Not yet. There was still one piece left to play. The collapse of the HOA didn't happen with a bang. It died the way corrupt things often do. Quietly, messily, with a trail of resignation emails and deleted social media accounts. Karen was arrested 2 weeks after the hearing. It didn't even make the evening news. By then, Natalie Finch had already buried her under 3 follow-up exposés. Her mugshot was leaked online, a mixture of defiance and disbelief on her face. The charges included fraud, falsification of public records, criminal trespass, and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud. They also found more than enough evidence to tie her directly to the false environmental complaint and the payments made to the vandal caught on my cameras. Ronald Chambers, of course, played it differently. His lawyers went on full damage control, claiming he had no knowledge of Karen's methods, that she'd acted independently, and that RC Holdings was merely exploring commercial possibilities in accordance with standard industry procedures. But the financial records, Alex's leaks, told a different story. Enough for the county DA to open a fraud investigation into RC Holdings' involvement with multiple HOAs across the state. Meanwhile, Pineview Shores HOA officially ceased operation. The 3 remaining board members resigned within days of the audit beginning. One of them tried to hold a community vote to save the organization, but nobody showed up. The website went down. The phone line went dead. The HOA, once proudly printed on mailboxes and fences, vanished like smoke. What followed was a strange piece. No more HOA reps snooping around with clipboards. No more letters accusing me of disrupting architectural harmony. No more threats about shoreline access, permits, or community obligations. Just me, the lodge, and the lake. I used part of the settlement money, $385,000 in damages and legal fees, to reinforce everything. New fences, private server for the security system, remote-controlled drone surveillance I could fly from my phone. Overkill? Maybe. But after what I went through, I had no intention of being caught off guard again. And just for fun, I added a new sign at the gate, laser-engraved brass on oak. Private trust land, no HOA. No access, no excuses. But the part that surprised me most? The neighbors. A few of them, people I'd never really spoken to, started stopping by. Not to invade, just to talk. One guy brought fresh eggs. A woman offered to help repaint the dock. Another dropped off a bottle of bourbon with a note. "Glad you stood up. We didn't know how to stop her." Apparently, Karen had ruled Pineview Shores like a tin pot dictator for over 5 years. Most residents joined the HOA thinking it was a formality, but slowly she'd eroded their input, rewriting bylaws, centralizing decision-making, punishing non-compliance with fees and threats. Nobody pushed back, until I did. Funny how resistance works. You don't need to convince everyone. Just be visible long enough that others remember what standing up looks like. Alex disappeared from public view for a while. Can't blame him. The man went through hell. But one afternoon, he showed up at the lodge unannounced, holding a six-pack and looking like someone who hadn't slept since the Nixon administration. We sat on the dock in silence for a bit. "I'm moving," he finally said. "Out of state. I'm done with this place." "You deserve a clean start," I said. "I've got family in Montana. No HOAs, just mountains." "Smart." He looked out at the lake. "You think they'll try something like this again, somewhere else?" "Always," I said. "But now they know someone fought back and won." He smiled faintly. "Thanks for not backing down. You helped make it possible." Before he left, he handed me a small envelope. Inside, 2 flash drives. "There's more," he said. "Stuff I didn't know if you'd need. But now, it's yours." Then he was gone. Later that night, I plugged one of the drives in. More documents, not just from Karen, others. HOAs in neighboring towns, land acquisition plans, RC holding strategy decks. The same playbook, different properties, same cancer, and I realized then it wasn't just about my lodge. It never was. It was about people like me, scattered all across the country, who thought they owned their homes until someone in a golf cart told them otherwise. That drive, that was ammo, and I knew exactly how to use it. It started as an idea, a passing thought on a cold morning while I sipped coffee on the deck, watching fog drift across the lake. What if I wasn't the only one? That flash drive Alex left me, after I went through it, twice, slowly, it hit me like a slap. This wasn't just a fluke, it was a pattern. HOA boards across the state, hell, across the country, had been infiltrated, influenced, even quietly purchased by corporate developers like RC Holdings. Same playbook every time. Rezone, annex, pressure, acquire, flip. But most of the time, the homeowners caved. They didn't have the stomach for the legal fight, didn't have evidence. Or worse, didn't even realize what was happening until their property taxes tripled and their backyards became community walking trails. Me, I had a war chest now. Time, money, documentation, and no HOA to babysit my every move. So I made a decision. I launched a site, No Access Network. Simple at first, just a place to post public documents, Karen's emails, court transcripts, HOA financial statements, project maps, all scrubbed of personal info, but heavy with receipts. Then I added a form. Been pressured by your HOA? Suspicious annexation? Tell me. The inbox exploded within a week. Stories from Idaho, Texas, Arizona, Georgia. Property owners who lost land, who were hit with $1,000 fines for unpainted fences, only to discover their HOAs were partnering with development firms. The HOA system wasn't broken. It was working exactly as designed. For the people who bought their way into power, I started holding Zoom calls, interviewed whistleblowers, posted guides on how to read development proposals, challenge zoning motions, track shell companies through public records. People sent me documents, phone recordings, photos. One guy from Nevada mailed me a literal box of old HOA newsletters. Said he didn't trust digital files. Natalie Finch ran another piece. The man who crashed his HOA and sparked a movement. I laughed at the headline, but it wasn't wrong. None of this was about revenge anymore. It was about defense. The kind you do with a tool belt in one hand and a subpoena in the other. And as it grew, something shifted inside me. That ache I'd carried for years. After bad investments, the burnout from the rescue service, the feeling that I was just putting out fires until I burned out with them. It started to fade. People called me a fighter, a bulldog, a legend. I preferred the term pain in the ass, but it was working. And then, one sunny morning in late spring, a black luxury SUV rolled up to the gate again. New plates, same energy. I watched the feed from the porch. Clean-cut guy in a navy blazer stepped out, holding a folder, looked around, pressed the intercom. "Mr. Rawson, I represent a private client interested in making a very generous offer on your lodge. Full acquisition, minimal terms. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised." I didn't even touch the mic. I walked down to the gate, slowly, calmly, and looked him in the eyes through the bars. "I suggest you turn around," I said, "before your GPS loses signal permanently." He blinked, caught off guard. "Sir, my client—" "Your client," I cut in, "can read the sign." He looked up. "Private trust land. No HOA. No access. No excuses." "Now," I added, "if you're still standing here in 30 seconds, I'll assume you're trespassing, and the sheriff will assume the same." The man hesitated, then turned back, slipped into the SUV, and drove off. I never did find out who sent him. Didn't matter. The lodge stood quiet, untouched. The lake shimmered in the morning sun. My dock creaked gently under its own weight, and the wind carried the smell of pine and wet stone. And for the first time in years, I felt like I'd stopped running. I didn't win because I shouted louder. I won because I outlasted them. I documented. I exposed. I locked the damn gate. And no matter how many Karens show up with clipboards or how many men in suits come waving fake deals, they'll all find the same thing. One man, one lodge, one very firm no.